Hello from Vancouver, Canada. Today I'm going to give you 10 tips that I think will be handy for you if you're traveling to Vancouver for the first time. I was born and raised here in the city, so I think I do know a little bit about the city. So the first tip is weather related. You might have heard that it rains a lot in Vancouver, and this is true. For about 3/4 of the year, it's pretty cloudy and rainy, can be a bit depressing. So the best time to visit Vancouver is actually from June to September. The weather is pretty mild, it's generally sunny, it doesn't get too hot and it doesn't get too humid, so it's actually amazing, and this is when the city really shines. If you don't happen to be coming June to September, then I would suggest make sure you have an umbrella with you everywhere you go, because the one day you don't bring an umbrella is the day it's going to rain. That's how it works. I do want to note that in the last few years, in the month of August, there have been wildfires, so that causes a lot of smoke in the area. It makes it very difficult to actually do outdoor activities, and it seems to be becoming a regular thing, so that's not really the best time to come, especially if you have medical or respiratory conditions that makes it difficult for you to be outside when it's smoky outside. Number 2, so if you are planning to drive around, this might be of interest. I've heard from other people from across the country that this is something a little bit different and unique to the province of British Columbia. Here, when our traffic lights flash green, it means that it's a pedestrian controlled crosswalk. So that means you have to check to make sure that there aren't any pedestrians who are waiting to cross, and if there are, then you have to stop for them. I believe that in other provinces across the country, the flashing green light means an advance left. So that's something a little bit different that you might want to know. It's a small thing, but if you're planning to ride a bike while you're here, make sure you don't ride on the sidewalks. And if you do need to go onto the sidewalks, then get off your bike and just walk with it. There are plenty of bike lanes on the streets here, so you can check out a really good map that I'll link down below where you can see all the different bike routes throughout the city. A bonus tip for the bike is if you're planning to ride around the seawall, which most people who visit here do, just make sure you're riding the right way, because it's actually only one way. As of today, in May 2019, we still don't have Uber, so you're going to have to use the taxis if you're not using transit. I think in most cities there's an area that's kind of sketchy and people generally want to avoid. So for Vancouver, that area is the downtown east side. It is just east of Gastown and Chinatown, which I think a lot of tourists will visit. So it's a section especially of East Hastings Street where you have a lot of homeless people living there. It's very sad to see, but generally I'd say the people are harmless, so they won't really bother you, but it can be a little bit uncomfortable walking through that area. For those of you that really like museums, I would say Vancouver doesn't have a huge selection of museums, but if you do want to visit one, I would recommend the Museum of Anthropology at UBC for First Nations collections, and also the Museum of Vancouver for a look at Vancouver history. So one of the biggest draws of Vancouver is that we're surrounded by amazing nature and outdoor activities. So most people who visit will probably do something of the sort. So likely go on a hike, which is free, and there's plenty of hikes in the area. I just want to point out that it's really important to make sure that you take with you the essentials when you go out on a hike, because you never know what will happen. So make sure you're safe and you're prepared. You don't want to be lost and then have to get rescued. And also be aware of wildlife. So there are bears, and I haven't seen one except for a black bear on the island, but there are grizzly bears. Thanks to its large Asian population, Vancouver actually has some of the best Asian food outside of Asia itself. So I think if you're visiting, take advantage of that. Lots of good Korean food, Japanese food. There's good Chinese food if you go to Richmond. So here's a tip on bus etiquette here. I think it's common sense, but make sure you move to the back of the bus so that people can get on at the front, and so you don't block the rear doors because that's where most people need to get off. And last but not least, because this is North America, we do tip. So generally it's expected that you tip 15 to 20% if the service is good at restaurants. We also do tip with taxi drivers and at hotels as well. So just keep in mind, you know, whenever you're receiving a service of any sort, you might have to tip. Of course, you know, if your service was horrible, then that's kind of up to you. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoy visiting Vancouver. It's beautiful here and most people are friendly. I hope you have a good time. If you have any questions about Vancouver, you can let me know in the comments below. Also, I've linked some useful links for you down below in the description, so you can check those out and if you need some more information.